Alright, we got a special lesson this week. So, some things I noticed in your video, in like regards to your email, saying how, boy, you said something like, when you start to record, you don't play very well. That's everybody, myself included. I like to call the record button the panic button. Or perhaps we could call it the anxiety button, because as soon as you hit record, that's when the pressure is on. And that's when the mistakes just love to come out. So, what I noticed was about 165 and up, you had a tendency to rush. So, again, like 165 and up, some of the stuff you were playing a little too fast, just a little bit. Not a lot, only a little bit. So I was strumming along with you while you were playing. This way I could hear better when things were correct and when they were not. So not everything was rushed, only some stuff. Another thing I heard is, especially at the faster speeds, when you were playing the chords up here, like the D5 and the C5, instead of it sounding like this, we had this. That low E string that was ringing out. So we need to work on muting that. So there's a couple things you can do, really 3 things. What I like to do is I have my thumb over the top. So when I'm playing chords, these power chords at least, that start on the A string, I have my thumb over the top, barely touching that low E so we don't hear it. Other people, they will just use their index finger up underneath it. Definitely a good way. Some chords, like if we're playing something like this, you have to mute the low E string with your index finger because that's too much of a stretch to hold while your thumb's over the top. So, I do recommend getting used to the thumb being over the top. It is a very, very useful muting tool. I'm going to try my best to remember to put a link in this email to a video I did all about muting strings. If I forget to do that, just look up Mile High Shred string mute or string muting and you should see the video come up. But it goes into a lot of detail about how to properly mute strings to get the cleanest playing possible. Good angles on the camera and all that stuff. The other thing that I heard, and I didn't really hear this before in other performances, but for some reason this time it stood out. And that's when you're changing chords. This time, you were cutting the chord short. Like, you ended the sound too early. So, for example, like when you went from, going from this D5 down to the C5, it was sounding like this. So if I do that really slow, see, there was a gap in the sound going from the D5 to the C5. What we want is it continuous. We want it continuous. So that happens when you go into the new chord and strum at the same time. So basically, when you're changing power chords that are on the same strings, keep the pressure down. Like, think of it as you're sliding. Like that. But as you get into the new chord, you also strum at the same time. This gives a much more full sound. It just sounds better. Obviously, when you're changing strings, the sound has to cut a little bit, but we can still try and time the jump so we have the sound ringing out as much as possible. So with power chords, I really like doing that. I think it sounds really good, and it's definitely doable, so I want you to focus on that as well. So, let's see. With this new thing, the thing that's special, you notice here it says, whoops, where's that mouse? There it is. It says 160. Your goal is to play this whole thing at 160. The other thing that makes it special, we have a drum track this time. So these two blank bars, you're going to hear a drum count. So like this. So the drums are playing what the rhythm is to help you hear it even better, to help you line things up as accurate as you can. So we got some fairly big jumps from the chords, or from chord to chord, on some of the stuff. You know, F5 to G5 is not big, but you know, A5 down to F5 is a bit of a jump. G5 up to the B5 is a bit of a jump. This way, you can focus on really, really good chord transitions. Like from here, you know, actually go from here down to here. I want you to really focus on making sure those chords are ringing out the whole time. Just slide down and hit the chord. Here, slide up and hit that chord. Make the chords ring out the whole time. So this will be played through twice, and then we move up here. So when you're playing on the second half, make sure that low E string never rings out. Never rings out. So as far as like working this up, I would not work the entire thing up in fives. It's going to take too long. So what you could do is perhaps work this up in fives without that repeat, as you have been doing. And make sure that the muting is done really well. Make sure that you can play it without the low E string ringing out at all. When that's sounding good, you just say you've worked that up, you know, maybe with the metronome to make this easy. Then you come in here to Guitar Pro. Once you feel like you got the chord progression down, you know, all the chord progression down, and you're ready to play the whole thing, I'm going to start what I'm saying over again. I'm just worried I might be saying things in a confusing way. So, if you feel like you need to work up this rhythm again, doing the 60, 65, 70, 75, and so on, just do a small portion. So I recommend doing this without the repeat and working it up 60, 65, 70, 75, if you feel you need to. If you think you're okay, you know the rhythm well enough, and you want to jump into it, that's fine. That's okay. I just want to clarify that it's if. If you feel you need to work it up, just do the small portion, not the whole thing, including the repeats and all that, because that'll take too long. So that being said, just in case you don't know about this Guitar Pro feature, so again, you have the drum track counting you in. So you do not need the metronome or the count in turned on. So if you see these two things highlighted, turn them off. It'll sound better this way. Now, working it up, which you can do instead of starting at 60 beats per minute, let's use the Guitar Pro percentage feature. We'll turn that on, drop this down, pick 50%. Play the whole thing at 50%. When that feels good and you feel confident with it, work on it at 60%. When you feel good and confident with that, go up to 70%, and so on. So once you get to 100% and that's feeling good, what I want you to do is you come up here, click on this guy, and mute the guitars. So yes, eventually I want you to mute the guitars and just play along to the drums. And then when you're feeling confident with the drums playing the whole thing, then you're going to go back to just the old metronome and test yourself with that. So that's the ultimate goal. By the end of the week, let's see if you can play this whole thing at 160 beats per minute, all the repeats in there, with just the metronome. I want you to use Guitar Pro to help you get a really solid grasp on how everything should sound and feel. So basically, use Guitar Pro's percentage feature, get a solid 50%, and then start working on 60%, and then 70%, 80%, and so on. Now, because of the length of this, you do not have to start at 50% every single day that you practice. This is a different approach to practice versus what we have been doing. However, let's say you make it to 70% one day and then you try doing it at 70% the next day and it's too difficult, drop it down to 60%, try it there, and drop it to 50% again if you need to. Ultimately, what we want is you to be able to play this at 160 with no warm-ups. So if you feel like you know this rhythm well enough that you don't have to warm up, just go for it. Go for the high speed. I hope all that makes sense. Rewatch everything. Take notes if you need to. And if you need clarification on anything that I said, take a note of that and let me know what you need clarification on. So, again, use Guitar Pro's percentage feature to work up to the full 100% speed. When you are feeling comfortable playing along with the drums and the MIDI guitar, and you're feeling comfortable with, again, at the 100% with the drums and the guitar, mute the guitar on Guitar Pro. Get comfortable playing along with just the drums. When you're feeling solid with that, try it with just the metronome again. So, I'm going to play with my metronome. I'm going to do this at 50% and then 100%. If it'll come back up. Hang on a second. Oh, why does it not want to show up? Huh. Weird. I don't know why this is not showing up. Hold on. What's going on here? There we go. Odd. Okay. So, 80 beats per minute, the whole thing. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2 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 and 4. Done. And 100% speed. 160 beats per minute. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. All right. Any questions, please let me know. I will see you again in your next video.